We're out here in Owasso, Oklahoma, right up the interstate from me at No Limits Church. And I've got with me Kade Young of Collaborate Worship. You guys probably know him. And they're gonna show us through all the tech that they use here at their church and specifically how they use it to create a great broadcast on a budget. But Kade, why don't you tell us a little bit about No Limits Church while we're here?
Yeah, welcome to No Limits. We're about 20 minutes north of the Tulsa area, because you probably never heard of Owasso. Owasso is a suburb of Tulsa. There's about 50,000 people here. Our church seats 100 people. We have two services, so between these two services, we have 150 to 180 people each Sunday, and we love it here, but we're ready to move because we've been here this is our 7th year here.
Wow.
And it's kind of weird to have two services whenever you have 150 to 180 people. So we love to get everybody back in the same room, get a bigger place, but just like everywhere, Owasso is growing like crazy, so it's kind of hard to find land. But we got some things in the works, so hopefully you can come back out in like a year,
Yeah,
and we'll be in a new place and we can do this again.
Sweet, yeah, and we'll see some new stuff. But while we're here, let's take a look.
Awesome, let's go.
Hey, so I'm Dylan. I'm kind of head of all the visual things here at our church. And so we can start right here. This is our ProPresenter computer. This computer is actually doing a lot of different things. This is a 2019 iMac with a 6-core processor. I think we upgraded it to 40 gigs of RAM, and it's held up really well. So it's running ProPresenter 7. Probably not the latest version because it keeps asking me to update, and I just say no because I don't want to deal with it. We're not really doing anything really special in ProPresenter. We're just using it to run slides. We're not like running our live stream from it or anything like that. But we are cueing our lyrics from our playback app, which is run from an iPad at the drums. And so that's just going over the network. It's not wired. And we've actually never had it drop out or anything. It's really impressive how stable it's been. And that's just, it integrates to ProPresenter natively, like they already have the stuff built in to make that happen. You just obviously have to get it set up with your MIDI controller on the computer, which would just be Apple's audio MIDI setup. So that's pretty much all that's going on there. And then we're also running tracks on this computer, and that's also sending tuned vocals back to our X32 throughout the service. People are always surprised that it's able to keep up with all that.
Yeah, do you notice any kind of delay or anything with that?
With the tuned vocals, there is a little bit of a delay. I can't remember how much it is. You could probably I can probably look here in a minute and go in the settings and it'll tell you what your latency is. It's noticeable if you're listening for it, but if you're not, you don't really notice. Let's see, what else is this computer doing?
Is that getting sent to the broadcast mix as well?
Yes, so it's, I don't know if Kade talked about it, but we have to, on the X32, send it to 4 channels that are like the raw, and that's what goes to our in-ears, because you don't want tuned vocals going to your in-ear mix. And then it's duplicated onto 4 more channels, and that's the tuned vocals coming back from Ableton. So our 4 vocals have to take up 8 channels on the X32 to make that happen, which is kind of a bummer, but we had the channels to spare, so it works for us. The light board, it's kind of a dinosaur. I've tested doing software lighting with LightKey, I think. But we have this really strange issue where static electricity kind of causes things to flicker back here, and sometimes it'll make our screen on the stage flicker. I've tried so many different solutions and still haven't figured it out. It's really annoying. But when I tested LightKey, it made that flicker too. And I was like, okay, well, with our dinosaur light board, we don't have that problem, so we're just going to stick with that until we get that issue figured out, because I don't really want our lights flickering. So that's why we're still on this. It works. I'm pretty much the only person that knows how to program it, but that's my job anyway, so it's not really a big deal. It's pretty simple to run. We don't do anything super complicated. If you look up on the stage, we just have some curtain lights and then colored backlighting for the back row of the stage and the front row. There's 8 total lights up there in the ceiling, and then obviously the 2 key lights. So it's a pretty simple light setup, not a whole lot going on. As far as lighting on the stage, I think the backlights are American DJ 5PX Hex or whatever they're called. And then the key lighting is Chauvet Eve Fresnels, just 2 of them. That pretty much covers the whole front of our stage. And then for the curtain wash, those are American DJ, I can't remember the model number, but they just light up the curtain. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. I don't know if it'll look this way on his camera, but on our live stream, you can't really see the wash hitting the top of the curtains, which kind of frustrates me. But in the room, it's a really nice like ombre effect. It just gets dimmer as it goes up, and you can see it across the whole curtain. But that Blackmagic camera does not pick up the top very well. It just kind of looks black up there. So in retrospect, I would probably put some at the top pointing down to fill that in, but I also like the way it looks in the room. So it's one of those things where you gotta choose which one you're gonna prioritize. But before we had those on the curtain, it kind of just looked like a black hole back there because it was just a black curtain that dissolved into nothing. So that was a nice upgrade that we did that didn't really cost that much. American DJ lights are pretty good quality and pretty affordable too, I think. So it's a good option if you don't have a lot of money to work with.
Do you guys keep these house lights on during church, or do you turn those down?
Yeah, I'll show you how we control those. So those are just like standard household lights. And they have dimmable LED bulbs in them. So they're about 3,000 on the bulbs. You can get obviously whatever color temperature bulb you want. And then we have a Lutron dimmer pack, and it has this remote that we use to control the lights, and it just kind of dims them. So this would be like our pre-service setting. It's a little bit dimmer than all the way on. And then our worship setting is just kind of enough to be able to see where you're going, not run into anything. We actually used to have it dimmer than this, but people were complaining that it was too dark, so now it's at this setting. And then there's an all off if you want that. And then the all on is like our message lighting. Cool. So it's not the most elegant way to do house lighting, but it works really well for us.
Yeah, and
nice and simple.
If you've got house lighting, that's just normal lighting. Why not?
Our next space, I'll definitely do DMX lighting so I can control it with the stage lighting.
Yeah.
I'd like to do some that have RGB as well as white. I'm definitely not going to do ones that are just RGB. They still need to have that white bulb because you're going to have some funny looking lighting if they're just RGB. We'll see if we have the budget for that at our next space. That would be nice to have though. So from the iMac for presentation, it's going to our LED screen controller, which is up in the ceiling here, and then that maps the signal to the LED screen because there's like 15 different panels that it has to stitch together. And then it's also going to the confidence monitor right behind me for us vocalists. And we realized we had an event where we didn't have a confidence monitor. We were forgetting our lyrics all the time. So it's kind of a crutch that you become reliant on. So keep that in mind if you ever decide to put one up. And then it's, actually I forgot to mention before it goes to the LED controller, it's going to this A10 Mini. And this is sending it to the LED controller. And we also have a Roku on the second input going to this. So you just press that 2 and it throws it up on the screen. And that's how Kade shows his slides during his message. He just wirelessly connects to the Roku. Surprisingly, never really had any dropouts from that during a service. Kade does reset it every Sunday, like turns it off and back on just to be safe. But that's been really impressive how well that's worked. Kind of a hack for you, really cheap way to get wireless presentation.
What app is he using to actually present?
He uses Keynote now, right?
Yeah, it's just AirPlay.
Yeah, AirPlay using Keynote. So Keynote is working well for that, and he has all of his speaker notes up on his computer, and then obviously just the like stage display is what's going to the Roku.
Gotcha.
And then this A10 Mini is also sending the signal from ProPresenter to our live stream computer via the USB-C out. One thing I hate about that, if you've ever used an A10 Mini, you'll know that the USB-C out adds extra contrast to the image. I don't know why. It's really annoying. Every A10 Mini I've ever used does that. It's really frustrating, but it works well enough that like when we do need to throw up like a video that's playing, it's not a big deal. It works for us and it's a simple setup. But for the live stream, we just have this Blackmagic Studio 4K. It's the base one. I don't remember what the next level up adds. I think it's like SDI or something like that, but we just needed an HDMI out. I chose Blackmagic because the LED screen needs a very specific frame rate to not flicker. It needs to be 30.00 or higher. It can't be 29.97 or you're gonna get flicker. And we were using a C100 Mark II for our live stream camera before this, and it was very limited with the frame rates it would output through the HDMI, so we'd get flicker. The Blackmagic camera like lets you pick literally any frame rate to send out of the HDMI, which is really nice. We have it on 30.00, so that's working well for us. I think the studio camera, it puts out a great image. It's pretty much the same sensor as the Pocket 4K, I believe. We have a a Panasonic like 12 to something lens on there. It's a f2.8. We just keep it at f2.8 the whole time for as much light getting in as possible. We have the gain at 0 dB for like when the stage is fully lit. So we're not actually having to boost ISO on the camera, so that's really nice. But we do boost ISO for worship because the lights obviously get a lot more dim, and it still looks really clean. Like I'm really impressed with how clean the Blackmagic looks given how small the sensor is, because usually that causes you problems.
So do you have somebody operating that camera, or how does that work?
So our live stream guy, he's kind of just like, his job's pretty simple. He starts the live stream, he keeps an eye on it, and then for worship, he boosts the ISO. Kind of funny, but he uses this stylus here, and he just like, boop, boop, changes the ISO, and then when we get back to the message, just he can throw up like a slide or something on this, put it back to 0, you're good to go. Our philosophy is, we wanted a live stream for sermon archiving and for people that either can't come or maybe they had to miss a Sunday, that we wanted them to be able to view it. We're not trying to go all out with our live stream. We'd rather like give the most attention to the experience in the room. So I just wanted an image that looked really good, captured everything that's going on stage. And the Blackmagic one camera does that for us. It's just kind of getting a wide shot of the entire stage the whole time. I would like to add another camera and get a tight shot during the message as well. It's just like, it hasn't been a super big priority for us to add that because this is working for us right now. And it's just running through OBS. I don't think I mentioned that a second ago, but you did look at it.
Yeah, how are you capturing that into the computer?
There's just a capture card that the camera is going into. I can't remember what brand the capture card is, but it actually has a loop through that we use to send that signal to TVs out in the lobby.
Okay.
So they can see what's going on the stage when they're out there.
How have you found OBS to be? I know a lot of people have a chip on their shoulder about it.
I think that if you're not trying to do very much with it, you just need like a really simple live stream, it works well. I don't think it's like the most stable option you can use, but if you just like, you have one camera, maybe a presentation computer, you want to send the image to it, and you're not doing like a ton of switching, it works pretty well. So if you need a free, simple solution, like try out OBS. It's definitely got some quirks, but I think it works decently well for what it is. That's just an M1 Mac Mini that's running that. We did upgrade the RAM on it to 16 gigs, and I think the storage to 512 gigs. I think that RAM upgrade is very important if you're going to get an M1 device, because 8 gigabytes is not very much, not near enough, because that's got to be shared between the CPU and the GPU, if you didn't know. So definitely upgrade your RAM if you're going to get an M1 device. So the audio gets to the stream out of 2 analog outs on the X32, and then it's going to a Scarlett 2i2 interface underneath a table, which is then sending it to that Mac Mini via USB. And then OBS just recognizes that Scarlett is plugged in, and it's pretty easy to get set up. You just have to make sure your gain settings on the Scarlett are proper. It feels like you have so many gain settings before it gets to your actual live stream, because you have like the gain out of the X32, the gain on the Scarlett, the gain inside OBS. It can kind of be a lot to deal with.
Do you guys put lyrics on your live stream or any kind of lower thirds?
So if you look over on to this, you can see that the LED screen is completely in the shot. You can see the whole screen. It kind of crops at the top of the screen. And then the lyrics, let me throw some up real quick. So you're just seeing what people in the room are seeing, and it shows up really well on the live stream, so we just stick with that.
Cool. Yeah, so that's a great option for people who have a single wide shot camera and don't want to deal with having to get lower thirds working.
Obviously that wouldn't work if you were switching camera angles though, because it's not going to be on the screen the entire time.
Yeah, definitely.
But for something simple like ours, it works really well, and it looks crisp on the live stream because it's an LED screen. So a few specifics about the LED screen. It's from Worship Productions. I can't remember the exact size. It's like the second package you can get. They have like a small one and then a small one that's just 16 by 9, because the starter package is not 16 by 9. So we have that one. We upgraded the pixel pitch on it because obviously you can tell our room is really small. So we wanted the first row to have a clean experience looking at the screen. So I think it's a 2.5 pixel pitch, which is decently tight. I think the resolution comes out to about 720p, but it looks really good in the room. We have the brightness on like 50%, I think, and that's a problem I see with a lot of churches that have LED screens, is they have the brightness like turned up a lot. And they'll put out a lot of brightness, but I don't think you need it at 100% for sure. It might look really cool if it's like bright and lighting up the whole room. Maybe that's what you want, but you're gonna have trouble with the camera seeing it much brighter than your eyes are gonna see it. And we also just didn't want it to be like lighting up the whole room. Like it could probably be even a little bit brighter than that, but we like how it looks, and then it also doesn't fight the camera. Until we get to worship and we're bumping up that ISO to compensate for the dimmer lighting, the screen's obviously gonna get brighter when you do that, and it ends up being a little bit too bright. But when we have the ISO at 0 for the message, it's like the perfect brightness. So we kind of just found the best balance for the live stream and in the room, and I think it looks pretty good.
We're going to talk about how to get a great live stream the simple way, and what you got to do first is get your room sounding right, because we're going to set up our live stream as a bus mix that mimics what's going on in the room. So if your room doesn't sound good, you're never going to be able to get the live stream sounding good. So I just want to talk a little bit about what we've done in this room to get it to sound good. Probably the first thing is we can just pan around the camera over here, and here's Dillon having his coffee. And here's the main reason it sounds good in here is because Dillon is always holding up the back wall.
Oh, I was like,
We have some sound panels back here, and these are the only sound panels that we have in the room. There's 4 in this corner and then 4 on the other corner. And what that's doing is it's refining our low frequencies in the room, making them sound a lot tighter. Luckily, this room didn't need a lot of acoustical treatment. Now, if it was like really echoey, we would have done a lot more than this, because you can't have like more than a 2-second like echo going on in the room and get a great sound. You're always going to be fighting with it. So if you need acoustic panels, get that done. We actually have a great contact if you're in the Tulsa area. I think they actually travel all kinds of places, or you can do it yourself. I have a video on how to do that. Now, we did not build these ourselves, and you can probably tell because they actually look really good, but we did in the previous building. Anyway, invest in acoustical panels. It really makes a big difference. Now, you can also see we have the padded chairs in this room, which makes a big difference. It absorbs a lot of sound in here too. So that helps us make up for the concrete floors and all that good stuff. Now, another thing you can do is EQ your room, and really you should just be doing that anyways. And what that is you put EQ on the main mix to suit the room. So if you just put a PA in a room and you turn it on, there's going to be certain frequencies that bounce around more than others, that sound louder than others. And so you can use EQ on your main mix to kind of level out all of that and get a more level frequency response. And the way that helps your live stream is then you're not trying to EQ your vocals and your instruments to make up for some things that are happening in the room. All that takes place on your main mix. That way you can EQ everything else to make it sound good in both the live stream and in the room. So EQ your room. There's a lot to that. I have a video that walks you through how to do that if you want to go search the Collaborate Worship YouTube channel for that. Anybody can do it, but you're going to need to set aside like at least a full Saturday to go get the job done, because you're going to have to do it and then redo it and then redo it, and then you might finally get it right at that point, but you can do it.
Cool. Back to the acoustic panels, like how much could someone kind of expect to spend on something if they were to buy it? Just like ballparking.
Yeah, I think just for these 8 panels that we have, 4 here and 4 there, I think it's around a couple $1,000s, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Now, some rooms are going to have a lot of panels, and you may have a $20,000, $30,000 investment in acoustic panels. So I guess I say do what your budget allows. You may not be able to get it exactly where you want it, but just like if we have $10,000 and invest $10,000 into it, like whatever you got is going to make a difference. All right, so in a room this size, you're probably thinking it's crazy to have drums that are uncaged, right? It's like, how do you even pull that off? The main reason is because behind the drums, you'll see a curtain back there, and that's not just any curtain, that's actually an acoustical curtain. So it absorbs frequencies just like sound panels. So we have this whole like wall here, floor to ceiling, that's absorbing frequencies from the stage, so nothing bounces back into the congregation. I say nothing, but I mean stuff still bounces back, but it eliminates it or diminishes it a little bit. Now that curtain was expensive. I think that curtain was $4,000 or $5,000, and that was 7 years ago. So I don't know how much it would cost now, but again, acoustic treatment is worth the investment. So that's something that a lot of people forget. Even if you cage in your drums, if you don't put any sort of absorption behind the drums, you kind of just defeated the purpose, because all those frequencies or all those sounds just going to bounce around inside the cage and come out the back and then go make its way out to the congregation. So put something behind the drums to absorb that energy. It's going to make a big difference. So as far as gear goes here, we're using an X32 Compact, which has all the same functionality as the full-size X32. It's just smaller. And as you can see, that makes it fit great here on our sound booth. That's why we got the smaller version. Now, the difference is there's not as many physical like inputs on the back of the mixer. So if you're not using a digital snake, then you may need the bigger X32, so you have all 32 inputs, because there's only 16 on the back of this guy. But we have a digital snake behind the stage that has all 32 inputs, so not a big deal for us. All right, so now let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing processing-wise for our live stream. we're using a post-fader bus mix, and what that means is that our live stream mix follows our main mix. So if we turn up a vocal in the room, it's going to also turn up in the live stream. But you can modify that a little bit by changing that bus mix, so it's all relative to what's going on in the room. For example, you run vocals a lot louder in the room than you would in the live stream. So in general, like our vocals may be notched down in the live stream by like 3 dB or 5 dB to get it more of a balanced mix on a live stream. But in general, there's not a whole lot of adjustment going on because it sounds so good in the room. It's just easy to get a great mix for your live stream as well. And this shocked me as I've traveled around to larger churches and done tech tours. I always thought that I was cheating by doing it this way because it's like so easy. And then it's like I went to Church on the Move here in Tulsa, which is a really large church, and it's known for its tech. I mean, it's just an incredible church. And to find out that they're doing the same thing, using a post-fader bus mix, it's like, no, you're not. Surely you got like a DAW going on in some other room. They're like, nope, just post-fader bus mix. It's like, wow. Then I went to Victory Church, which is another large church here in Tulsa, and then lo and behold, they do the same thing. So I feel like I'm in good company. So just know that you're not cheating by doing a post-fader bus mix. But like I said earlier, it does require a great room mix to get great results in there. And then as far as the computer goes, I mean, we have an iMac sitting here that's running like ProPresenter and running our tracks. And we even have this open sound meter that lets us know what's going on in the room so we can diagnose any frequency issues, see how loud it is. Okay, so when it comes to like on a channel by channel basis, whatever you process on each channel is for your room and for your live stream. You can't customize for each whenever you're doing a post-fader bus mix, which is okay. You just have to kind of know what's important, what's not important. I'm just going to go through real quickly how I would process like a vocal channel. The first thing is I have a low cut filter on every vocal channel at about 180 hertz. That cleans up those low frequencies. That way they're not getting in the way of what's going on with the bass guitar kick drum. And then we have a compressor on every vocal as well with a ratio of 3, attack of 10 milliseconds, release of 52 milliseconds. And what the compression does is it limits the dynamic range of a vocal. Vocal has a really wide dynamic range. They can sing soft or like really belt it out. That's a lot more pronounced in a live stream than it is in a room. So you may compress a little more aggressively just overall so it sounds great in both places. My favorite guideline for this is when you're setting the threshold for your compressor, you just keep notching it down until the gain reduction meter is reading about -6 dB on average, especially with the X32, which is more of an entry-level mixer. If you compress more than 6 dB, it's going to start losing its shine and its life on that vocal, so you just got to be careful with that. But that usually gives you enough control to sound great on the live stream and in the room. As far as EQ goes, usually a pretty simple EQ for me. I'll put a low shelving filter at about 800 hertz, and that enables me to clean up that low end even more. Our vocals hold their mics really close to their mouth, no more than an inch away, so that gives you a nice full sound, but you usually have to clean it up. I use that low shelving filter for that. And usually somewhere between 600 and 800 hertz, I need to notch that out a little bit to take away some of the nasally kind of boxy sound out of a vocal. Not every vocal needs that, but most of them do. Then you can see I'm boosting in the high here with the high shelving filter just to add a little shine to the vocal. That's at 9, almost 10 kilohertz, boosting 3 dB. So just some simple EQ. And that's pretty much all I do to process the channels, and that makes them sound great in both the room and the live stream. Now, when it comes to the live stream overall mix, there's a few things that you need to do on that as well, and that's what you do on the live stream bus. You're going to want to put a compressor on the live stream bus to add even more control to the live stream. The settings I'm using, this is going to vary, but I'll give you what I'm using as a starting point. Ratio of 2:5, tack 20 milliseconds, release 185 milliseconds, gain. Makeup gain plus 6 dB. And then you're going to set the threshold the same way that I told you with the vocal until that gain reduction meter is hitting about -6 dB. And that's just going to add some light compression to your live stream bus. And on top of that, though, in order to get your live stream loud enough, a lot of people have a problem with that, like their live stream comes out really quiet, right? Mm-hmm. So not only do you want to put that compressor on there, but you also want to put a limiter on there. So I use an effect on the X32 called the precision limiter. Most mixers have a limiter plugin, so whatever you find, I'm sure that'll work well. You can see the settings there that are working for us. Here you're just wanting to squeeze as much volume out of it with the limiter that you can without limiting too much. I've learned that if you're limiting more than like 3 dB on this little meter here, you're going to notice that your limiter is active. The sound's going to be like the kick drum hits and it kind of sounds like the sound sucks in, right? That means your limiter is too aggressive. So just back up if that's the case. Now, another thing to keep in mind, and this has to do with really what's going on in the room. Your live stream will not be loud enough if your amps are not set correctly or your powered speakers. You can see like on our faders here that like our lead vocals at 0, everything's pretty close to 0 right here. The main mix is at 0. If you're running things like down by -10 dB and like that's kind of like your normal, then you need to make an adjustment at your amps. What you do is you turn down your amps, that way you can turn up everything on your mixer, and that'll give you a better sound in the room and the live stream, because what you want to do is you want to send a really strong signal both places, and there's a balance between your amps and what's going on at your mixers. So your live stream mix also needs reverb, otherwise it just sounds kind of dry and lifeless. We do a lot of live stream reviews, and that's kind of like the #1 thing we're telling people, like, where's your reverb? You need reverb and you need ambient mics, and that's what brings your mix to life. So on our mixer, we just use the same reverb that we're using in the room, we just send it to the live stream. And how you do that on the X32 is you just go to your effects returns, and you have 2 of those for each effects bus that you're using. And so you can like tap sends on fader, select your live stream bus, and then you'll turn up your effects returns for those reverbs that you want to go to the live stream as well. So you can't like customize, I want more vocal 1 reverb going to the live stream that's in the room. You don't have that level of customization, but you can take the overall mix of reverb for like all of your vocals and turn that either up or down in the live stream. Makes it sound great. All right, so another important thing to make your live stream sound good is to have audience mics. Otherwise, it's just kind of like, you don't feel like you're in the room, right? So you gotta, these mics just capture the sound of the room so you can make the people who are watching online feel like they're right there with you. It picks up the audience singing, the audience clapping, and just the general ambience of the room. So easiest way to do that is to get 2 mics, put one on either side of the stage to make sure that you don't run into any time alignment issues with your audience mics. Just place them like right under your main speakers as close as you can. Because if they're like too far behind the speaker or too far in front, then you're gonna have to time align all of those audio signals, which can be a little tricky. It's possible, so if you wanna do that, that's fine. Just keep in mind, you're gonna have to time align. I opt for the simple approach, just place them right under the main speakers, and then you don't have to worry about any of that. But I would say that this is an essential part of a great live stream mix, because you wanna capture what's going on in the room. It also works great for musicians in your mixes, because they can turn these mics up and hear what's going on in the room, and they don't feel like they're isolated from up here on the stage.
What are you guys using for in-ear mixes?
For in-ear mixes, we're using the, what do you call these things? The P16s. So you can see right here, all the vocals have one kind of hidden. So everybody has their own mix, and we don't do wireless, so they all have a cable that just connects to their headphones and runs down the back of their leg. Nobody ever knows unless you're up here wearing it. So just don't try to walk off with it on, because it pulls your ears out of. That hurts. Yeah. I've done that.
Not a good feeling.
All right, so back here we have our rack with all the goodies in it. So you just part the curtains here. It's real nice and clean looking back there, not really. So we have a bunch of those Furman power conditioners. So the top 2 are speakers and sub, and then the middle one is the snake and other accessories back here. And then the bottom 2 are the LED screens, so 1 for each half of the LED screen, because it uses that much power, so you don't want to overload your power conditioners. And obviously we got all our wireless mic receivers down there, and then it's really dark, but down at the bottom is our S32 snake, where pretty much everything is taken up in that snake.
Yeah, it's crowded down there.
The cables definitely need an overhaul down there, but we're hoping to not be here very much longer, so that's not a very big priority. That'll be something we do better at our next space. So this is all the stage storage that we have. So all of the technology that we need to make worship happen pretty much has to be stored in here. There are some things underneath the stage that don't get used very often. We have our wireless mics here. This is just a little foam tool holder that I found that works really well for keeping these from rolling around. So we have Sennheiser EWD microphones, and then our battery chargers. We've got power strips on each side of this, so plenty of power to work with. And then this is our musician storage, so in-ears and individual mic capsules. These are just lens cases that I found to store these capsules, which works pretty well.
Thanks.
And then just different odds and ends. Cables, extra instrument cables, extra XLRs, which looks like I'm missing some. Story of our lives as worship leaders, always cables missing.
Yep.
Broken P16s that need new headphone jacks. I had a guy that fixed 2 of them for me previously, but I don't think he wants to do it again, so I gotta find someone else. Or maybe I should just get a soldering iron and try it myself. And then just, oh, that's really unorganized, but that's tools and stuff. Anyway.
Nice. Love the toolbox storage. Classic. Church classic right there.
Yeah, this is a Harbor Freight purchase. I think it was like $600. If you've ever looked at tool chest, they get very expensive. So $600 is actually a really good deal.
Yeah.
And this is nice because obviously it's accessed by anybody that wants to come up here and touch it. And I like that you don't really know that this top portion is here until you know. And it can also be locked too. And then there's a little lockout for all the drawers inside here where you slide that and they won't open. So if you want to keep kids out, stuff like that. There's also child locks on each drawer where these things you have to slide to the left to open them. So a child that doesn't know is not going to get into it. So pretty nice.
So anyway, guys, that's No Limits Church right here. Thank you guys so much for showing me around and showing me that you can get, I mean, awesome sound and awesome video on a budget for whatever your church needs, whether that's 1 camera, whether that's 5 cameras, whatever it is. We've seen some cool stuff here. So thanks for showing me around. And like I said, Kade runs Collaborate Worship, so why don't you tell me about that and where else we can find you online?
Cool. Collaborate Worship is where we make it easy to create great sound. That's our whole premise, our whole goal. So if that sounds like something that you want, just check us out, collaborateworship.com. We're on YouTube, we have courses, all the stuff, but you'll find that all at collaborateworship.com. Thanks so much for coming today, man. It was good to have you.
And anyway, guys, yeah, I've gone through a lot of their courses and they've been awesome. So thank you guys again, and I'll have to make it back for your new space whenever that's finished.
Awesome.
Well, until next time.